All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. I'm going to do a video today talking a little bit about non-traditional Tampa 2, right? Something that you're going to hear a ton of during these playoff games coming up, and you've heard a ton of it all season long with a lot of the exotic looks that defenses are giving. So I just want to give you a heads up on what a non-traditional Tampa 2 would be so that that information might be a little bit easier for you to decipher. Remember to check out some of our partners, GameStrat, Sideline Replay Company we use. I've used them at every school that I've been at. Now that I'm a head coach again, I'll be using them next year as well. Dome Hats, the headwear company that we use with Play Fast Football in every school that I've ever been at. This is my gap down backer, all right, braided rope hat from Dome Hats. Make sure you check them out. Baker Sporting Goods company we use locally for coaches gear, fan gear, player store, other things that we do through them. So make sure you check out Baker Sporting Goods. Modern Football, which is an in-game analytics tool that coordinators and head coaches can use to make adjustments in-game instead of waiting until halftime to figure out what's going on. You can be tagging things, saving yourself time throughout the week with what you're doing, and then making live in-game adjustments. So check them out. FlyRouteDrones, which is the nation's leader in drones for athletics. We use drones for our practices. We use drones for our games. If you're in a state or where it's legal to use drones, I highly recommend it. It's a lot easier and better angles than traditional end zone cameras. All right. So first, let me start by talking about what I would think traditional Tampa 2, which we played out of our 3 high stuff. Right. So your traditional Tampa 2, we had 2 ways of doing it in our 3 high stuff. We would play it as a drop 8 coverage, and then we would also play it as an add-on 4-man rush to be able to get to it. And basically, what you're doing in a Tampa 2 world is you're kind of alleviating the issue of a 3 vertical into the middle seam, which could be vulnerable in a 2-high defense, right? So in a traditional cover 2 world, your corners would be your flat players, right? And then you would have safeties that were your deep half players. And then obviously you've got to try and keep the ball, or the stress off of your safeties to a 2-receiver side where receivers can get vertical down the sideline and then vertical down the seam, putting stress on the safeties. So your corners have to be jam funnel players that can force receivers inside and force them to the safety, while your inside seam or hook defenders need to be wall players so that they can wall players out. So you're bringing 1 and 2 closer to the safety. When you're playing a Tampa 2 version, you have what's called a pole player, right? And it's really just an inside deep third player, in all honesty, is what it is. So you're playing, the version that we would play was more of a 5 under 3 deep coverage, all right? But it's disguised as a cover 2 look, because in cover 2 you want those 2 hard corners to be able to jam and funnel and reroute receivers at the line of scrimmage, right? Rather than a traditional 3 deep coverage, which would have curl flat players, hook curl players, but nobody putting hands on that number 1 receiver, right? So in the cover 2 world, you want to stay where you can take easy throws away, and you want to be able to jam, impede, reroute, knock that number 1 receiver inside, be physical with them, take away easy gift or access throws. So the Tampa 2 world kind of acts as a 3 deep defense in a way. In the old school NFL defenses, it used to be the Mike or an inside backer that was the deep pole runner, right? For us in the 3 high world, it fit perfect for us because we were really looking to defend 3 vertical with our middle safety, all right? And then depending on how we wanted to play the coverage, when we would play it as an add-on, all right, we would basically take the Mike and add him wherever we wanted to add him into the rush, and now make it a 4-man deal. And now the middle safety is going to defend 3 vertical. If he doesn't get 3 vertical, then he can kind of sit in that high hook area, because if there's no 3 vertical, there's no threat of 3 vertical. Now we can play cover 2 to the single, it's no problem. To the 3 receiver side, if 3's not vertical and we can't get 3 vertical threats, well, now if we wall a 2, jam funnel a 1, we make his job a lot easier, right? So Tampa 2 was built into in our way. I wouldn't say it was the traditional NFL way, because it was our middle safety that was doing it. But to me, that version is a more traditional version of what Tampa 2 is. When you start hearing non-traditional Tampa 2s, what that basically means is people are starting to use it in a way where they can use their simulated or creeper pressures, right? So they're trying to dictate pass protection. They're trying to come up with either overloads or replacement blitzes where they can get a 4th rusher or a matchup that they like, somebody that they can get free or on a back based on the protection while still dropping 7 into the coverage, right? That's basically the idea behind Sims and Creepers. If you can figure out a way that you can live in a world where you can force them by their protection rules to turn protection, slide protection, do whatever you need to do to get yourself either a free runner or a good matchup with a backer on or somebody on a back while still dropping 7 in coverage, right? Third downs used to be a lot of 5-man pressures, man free, 303 deep, whatever the situation dictated, all right? A lot of 2-man deals. Quarterback scrambles started becoming a real big issue. So how can we impact the quarterback while still playing traditional 7-man to 8-man zone coverages so we have eyes on the quarterback if he scrambles, right? That's kind of the way, I look at it to say why people are using some of these deals. So now what they're doing is they're tying their sim creeper deals, their 4-man rushes into the non-traditional Tampa world. To me, all non-traditional Tampa means is they're going to play a version of cover 2 without both of the corners being flat players, right? So to me, if I wanted to stay with a traditional, and Alabama actually got a pick against Oklahoma using this very similar theory. It was an 8-up presentation that they dropped people out into a Tampa 2 deal. But in its simplest terms, if I wanted to stay with my normal Tampa 2 rules on that side, okay, and let's say for argument's sake, I wanted to, add a rusher in, okay, I wanted to add, let's say, I wanted to add the will into the pressure, all right. Well, now, if I wanted to add the will into the pressure or the Mike into the pressure, all right, if I sent the Mike the same way I did in my other deal and I sent the Mike as a 4th rusher, all right, well, now I've got my seam or wall player on this side. I can use to the backside now. I'm going to take this safety and I'm going to make him the pole runner. So I'm going to make him the guy that's really looking for 3 vertical, or what you would call that pole player in the Tampa 2. I'm going to make this, all right, my wall or seam player on the weak side. And now the non-traditional version comes from me playing a flat and a deep half with a corner. So rather than be squatted, okay, and it was a very similar presentation from Alabama to get the pick 6 against Oklahoma, it was basically a similar structure, all right, to where you're still trapping or playing a regular cover 2 version on one side, all right, while to the other side, instead of having a corner in the flat, you're dropping usually an outside backer, a DN from a 4-down look if it's some type of replacement blitz, somebody that can be the flat player while the corner becomes the half player. So the non-traditional part comes from the fact that we are not playing both corners in the flats with both safeties on the half. We're rotating different people to the half, and when you watch NFL and college football, what you're going to see is so many of these exotic looks from pressure presentations, and they're going to be running guys from the line of scrimmage to the pole, and they're going to be running guys, from inside to the flat. They're going to be doing all these crazy things to get the quarterbacks to not understand what the coverage is, right? But when you look at non-traditional Tampa 2, it's a way to play Tampa 2, which means we need a pole runner. For me in this drawing, I'm using the backside safety almost as a poach player to run the pole for 3 vertical there. All right, we still have our 2 inside hook to curl defenders, or seam, what I would call wall players, right? I like the 3 high version better because I feel better if we got 3 in the immediate hook, because right now, if I'm sending the Mike and I'm using the will in the weak side wall and the jack in the flat, then a lot of teams you would see the crazier rotation, and I wouldn't do this in high school by any means, but the crazier rotation would be taking the backside safety and trying to get him over the half while that became the pole player, so that if 3 didn't go vertical, I could have somebody sitting in the hook to the 3 receiver side, right? That's a little bit crazier of a rotation, but it's still a corner down on this side with an outside backer, defensive end, defensive lineman in the flat with the corner as the half player, right? That would be the non-traditional Tampa 2. So it's Tampa 2 coverage, getting to it in a non-traditional way. So you're playing deep halves with a pole player in the middle to take away some of those benders or those 3 vertical deals if it's 3-by-1, while creating exotic pressure pass to only send 4. So you're not really blitzing, you're only sending 4, but you're trying to dictate matchups in pass protection, right? So non-traditional Tampa 2 is just a way to play Tampa 2 with a pole player, right? But playing the flat with somebody other than the corner, so the corner can drop off to be the half. And in those 8-up presentations, like Brian Flores used a bunch in the NFL and now everybody's using in college, what it comes down to is finding a way to get all these crazy exotic rotations and drops to get the quarterback to make a mistake. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about non-traditional Tampa 2. Just think of Tampa 2 in its normal form and figure out ways to drop people into different places. Drop guys that normally rush guys that normally drop, so that you can confuse the protection in the quarterback. Hope that helps you guys out. Hope you enjoy all the playoff games, a bunch of bowl games today. The big one today will be Miami, Ohio State later on. Hope you're enjoying all that. Hope this helps you guys out. Thank you for being with Play Fast and following everything we do. Pushing 5 million views. Not going to get there in 2025, but hopefully get there in 2026. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. See you guys next time.